Near the end of this revelation, to me, it's interesting to see the polarization that is taking place. We see that in political parties. We just survived barely an election season. We see that in all kinds of areas where we have a hard time becoming Zion, one heart, one mind, dwelling together in righteousness with no poor among us. Well, if the restoration is meant to reverse the apostasy, if Zion is meant to reverse Babylon and Idumea and overcome them, then we're going to have to overcome this polarization somehow. And notice how it's described in verse 35 and 36. Powerful phrases. For I am no respecter of persons, and will that all men shall know that the day speedily cometh. The hour is not yet, but is nigh at hand, when peace shall be taken from the earth. Interesting. Peace taken from the earth just before the Prince of Peace comes among us. Just like darkness coming just before the coming of the light of the world. Yes, peace will be taken from the earth. And here's why. On the one hand, the devil shall have power over his own dominion. And on the other hand, also the Lord shall have power over his saints and shall reign in their midst. Oh, power over the saints? That is the millennial reign. Christ reigning personally upon the earth. 10th article of faith. If Christ is here, oh, but he's not yet. Well, he will be. The voice of warning, prepare ye, right? So in preparation for the coming of the King, I need to become a loyal subject in advance. I need to follow the Lord with all my heart, might, mind, and strength. I need to seal myself to him through a new and everlasting covenant. I need to solemnize those covenants through ordinances from which I will never stray. All of these things coming together from section 1. But notice the polar opposites. On one side, Satan does have power over his own dominion. Good thing the Lord has power over his saints. Sometimes I've tried to draw this verse for my students with a graph. And one extreme of the graph on the x-axis is the most righteous, and the other extreme is the most wicked. Kind of onto infinity in the positive and onto infinity in the negative. And the vertical, the y-axis, is how many people exist at that level of righteousness or wickedness. Throughout history, I'll say this first. I'll draw a bell curve where most are in the middle, and there are very few on either extreme. And that seems to describe most of human history. Most of us are pretty good people. We're not great, but we're not awful. We're just kind of mediocre, and there we are in the middle. And you'll get an occasional Jesus and Martin Luther King and Buddha and the truly great souls, and you'll get an occasional Hitler or the absolute worst kinds of people, okay? You following the graph idea? Well, based on verse 35 and 36 of the Doctrine and Covenants, section 1, it seems like that bell curve will someday become inverted. And instead of the mass in the middle with very few on the extremes, flip the whole thing upside down and you are seeing no more middle ground because everyone has picked a side and begun fighting for it. It's not enough to be on the Lord's half. We need to be on the Lord's side. Choose you this day whom ye will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. How long halt ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal, follow him. Do you want Zion or Babylon? Do you want Israel or Idumea? Take a pick, but choose a side, because no man can serve two masters. You will end up serving only one. You get the sense of spiritual polarization that this verse describes? There is no spiritual Switzerland, okay? We are picking a side and diving in the trenches because it's a war that we're engaged in. So onward, Christian soldiers, enlist, join the Lord's ranks, and fight the good fight of faith for the Prince of Peace. This is not some kind of militant Mormonism Not anything close. This is not a crusade that we're signing on for. This is simply living the gospel of Jesus Christ in as kind, compassionate, and conspicuous a way as we can, so that the righteous can come running to the Lord's standard. You understand what this polarization is suggesting? I'll say this as we wrap up. Satan, from the very beginning, in the war in heaven, was trying to take power over his own dominion. Free will, human agency, has always been his enemy, so he wants to remove it. Think about how many sins are addictive in their nature, and sadly, in these last days, there seem to be more and more of those, to the point that, yes, the devil is taking power over his own dominion. Well, if there's absolute obedience on his side, and that's what military situations require, if there's absolute obedience on his side, there must be absolute obedience on the Lord's side too. This Lord who cannot look upon sin with the least degree of allowance, but thankfully makes allowance through repentance. Obedience, repentance, truth, faithfulness, loyalty on the Lord's side, a true and everlasting covenant relationship through ordinances from which we'll never stray. Wait, is the Lord taking away our agency too? No, he would never do that. What's happening then? We are offering our agency to him. We are taking our will and laying it upon the altar as a free will offering to God. In fact, to a God who won't accept it, who says, thank you so much for the gesture. I know that is the only thing that's uniquely yours, so the only thing you can choose to give me at all. But let's keep it yours, so you have something to give me tomorrow. Hold on to your will, but use it to fully accomplish mine. I love verse 35 and 36. To me, it's a fitting finale for this week's study as we decide which side will I be on, and am I headed toward the poles? Am I reaching across the aisle in hopes of persuading other people to come in this direction? Am I raising the voice of warning? Am I allowing others to prepare, for the Lord is nigh? Am I offering my will on the altar of sacrifice so that the Lord knows that I can be fully trusted to do his work? Brothers and sisters, hark ye, hark ye. Prepare ye, prepare ye. This is the context of this book of commandments. The doctrine will tie us to Jesus, and the covenant will truly bind us as one in him. I am grateful for his words in his preface, in his book of commandments, spread to his children around the world through his disciples and his servants that have his authority. This is Christ's book. This is Christ's work. And may we fully engage in it.